today. So we are very excited to have Autumn Wagoner with us today. She is the Youth Resource Coordinator at Mission, West Virginia, where she works with youth experiencing hardships in their lives, including trauma, abuse, unhealthy relationships, dating violence, mental health, substance use, high-risk sexual behaviors, or any other life situation that makes it difficult for youth to function on a day-to-day basis. Autumn received her bachelor's and master's in social work from the University of Akron, and she's a licensed independent clinical social worker in West Virginia. She's been in the field for 12 years, and her previous experiences include working with older adults, addiction, and mental health. Her previous job before coming to Mission, West Virginia, was a mental health therapist for youth and adults. So thank you for agreeing to present today, Autumn. I'm going to turn it over to you, and we're excited to see
you. All right. Well, thank you. Welcome, everyone. I am so glad to see all of you all on here. This is such a huge topic, and it hasn't gotten any better. We keep hearing stories after stories when it comes to bullying and also suicide. So I'm so glad that so many of you are on this call. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then I'm going to disconnect my camera just because, West Virginia, and it's like if I have my camera on and it's like it'll cut me off the internet. So I gotta love it. But I actually moved here from Akron, Ohio, almost 4 years ago. And I will tell you, the internet and Wi-Fi connection was so much better in Ohio, but Ohio is one of the dumbest states. I just can't handle Ohio. So I will take bad internet in West Virginia than going back to Ohio anytime. Alrighty, so we will go ahead, and today we're going to be talking about bullying and suicidal risks. So when we look at bullying, bullying behavior is unwanted and aggressive, and involves real and perceived balance of power. And so when we talk about imbalance of power, it's when power is used to control or harm others. And so that power can look different in, different people. So it could be physical strength. It could be access to embarrassing information to humiliate other people. It could also be popularity. Imbalance of power can change over time and in different situations, even if it involves the same people. So really it depends on, when that person sees someone that they want to bully, depending on what they see as a quote unquote weakness in that person, that imbalance of power can change in order to control and harm those other people. The behavior is repeated and has the potential to be repeated over time. And those who are bullied and those who bully others may have serious and long-lasting problems. And that's really important because some people think that, well, somebody that is the aggressor and is bullying somebody else, may not have long-lasting problems in the future, but that is actually not the case. So when we look at types of bullying, we have verbal. So this would be saying or writing mean things such as teasing, name calling, making inappropriate sexual comments, taunting someone, or making threats to cause harm. We also have social bullying, and this can also be called relational bullying. And this involves hurting people's reputations and their relationships. So this may be leaving someone out on purpose, telling others not to be friends with someone. It could be spreading rumors about somebody else or embarrassing someone in public. Our next type is physical. So this involves hurting a person's body or their possessions. So this could be hitting, kicking, or pinching. It could be spitting on someone, tripping or pushing them, taking someone's belongings and breaking them, or making mean or rude hand gestures. And then the last is cyber, which this is a really, really big one right now. So cyberbullying takes place over any type of digital device. That could include our cell phones, computers, our tablets, anything that's electronic. And it's usually done through text, apps on our phones and tablets, social media, different forums and groups where people talk, and also gaming. So with cyberbullying, this is sending, posting, or sharing those negative, harmful, false, or mean content about somebody else. It could be sharing personal or private information about someone else, causing them to be embarrassed or humiliated. And also, we know that some cyberbullying crosses the line into unlawful or criminal behavior. And so a lot of this, when it crosses into that unlawful criminal behavior, a lot of it that we have seen is when somebody has shared personal images or messages that involve any type of sexual activity. I've talked to the youth all the time about the dangers of sending nude photos, because once somebody gets a hold of it, you have no idea what they're going to do with those pictures. And so we see a lot of that where it's spread around schools or in communities. And they have now created laws against that, and every state has different laws when it comes to sending of nude photos. So when we look at cyberbullying, when we think about all the social media platforms, it's almost endless. But these are the most common social media platforms where cyberbullying takes place. So Instagram is 42%, Facebook is 37%, Snapchat is 31%, WhatsApp is 12%. And if you're not familiar with WhatsApp, it's kind of like it's almost like Facebook Messenger. So it's just like a messaging app. And then we have YouTube at 10% and Twitter at 9%. And so when we look at kids that are dealing with cyberbullying, these are the issues that they are experiencing after they have fallen to being bullied via the internet. So 9% began abusing alcohol or drugs, 14% developed an eating disorder, 20% started skipping class, 24% stopped using social media altogether, 25% engaged in self-harm, 26% deleted their social media profiles, 26% had suicidal thoughts, 37% developed depression, and 41% developed social anxiety. So you can see, with this, that it's not just them feeling embarrassed, or, they're just a little bit sad. It has a whole range of stuff from, with behaviors such as skipping school or classes, all the way up to having those suicidal thoughts and the development of mental health disorders such as social anxiety, depression, and eating disorders. So when we look at who is at risk for bullying, bullying doesn't discriminate. It can happen to anybody regardless of age, gender, race, their sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, religion. It can happen to anybody, but they have identified certain groups that are at higher risk for bullying. So individuals that are disabled, and then also gender, poverty or social status, ethnic or cultural differences. And so this includes any migrants or somebody who may be a refugee, physical appearance, and also the sexual orientation and gender identity and expression. So youth at risk for bullying, these are kind of more detailed about a youth that may be at a higher risk for being bullied. So they may be perceived as different from their peers. So by maybe the way that they look, maybe they are overweight or underweight. Maybe they are wearing different clothing than what everybody else says is in style or cool. Being new to a school, or being unable to afford what youth consider cool, or anything that may be trending. Another risk is that they're perceived as weak or unable to defend themselves. If they're already experiencing depression, anxiety, or already have a low self-esteem. If they're less popular than others and they have fewer friends. And if they don't get along well with others and they're seen as being annoying, or they may antagonize other people for attention. So these are some risks that youth are more likely to bully other people. So they have identified that there's two types of youth who are more likely to bully. So the first one, it's those individuals who are well connected to their peers. So they're popular, they have that social power, they're overly concerned about their popularity, so they feel they have that reputation to uphold. And then they also maybe like to dominate or be in charge of other people. And then the other type that are more likely to bully other people is the complete opposite of what I had just mentioned. So these are individuals who seem more isolated from their peers. They may be depressed, anxious, or have a low self-esteem. So they are less likely to be involved in school and school activities. They may be easily pressured by their peers, and they have a difficult time identifying with the emotions or feelings of others. So they kind of have that apathetic feeling where, they haven't developed that empathy when somebody's dealing with something. So it's kind of, they're a little bit emotionally numb to other people's thoughts and feelings. So some other factors is that they are aggressive or they're easily frustrated. If they have less parental involvement, or if they're having any issues at home, if they think badly of others, have difficulty following rules, if they view violence in a positive way, and they have friends who bully others. So when we look at viewing violence in a positive way, I've seen this a lot in youth who grew up in an environment where there was domestic violence. And so, they may have been taught that it's okay to, hit other people or mistreat other people, that they deserve it. And so when we see that, when youth view that violence in a positive way, again, a lot of times it's from how they were raised in that environment that they grew up in. So these are signs that a youth may be being bullied. So if they have unexplained injuries, so if they constantly have bruises or scratches or marks on them, and if somebody asks them about it, they just brush it off as just some accident. Oh, they tripped and fell, or they, hit them on the doorknob when they were, walking out of a door. So they just have these unexplained injuries where, they're just, something seems off. If they have lost or destroyed clothing, books, electronics, jewelry, anything like that. If they complain of frequent headaches, stomach aches, feeling sick, or maybe faking illness. So we know that they actually may have headaches and stomach aches because of the stress, the fear that they may be feeling. But other times, some students that may be being bullied will complain of these psychosomatic symptoms. So they'll just say that they have a headache or stomach ache in order to get out of class and get into maybe the nurse's office, where they know they won't have to face the person or people that are bullying them. There could be changes in their eating habits. So all of a sudden they're skipping meals, or maybe they're binge eating. A lot of youth, they may come home hungry because they did not eat lunch, whether they were afraid to sit out in the main area in the cafeteria to eat, where they may be being bullied, or if somebody stole their money, so they were unable to eat lunch. So that is very common for them to come home feeling hungry. They may have trouble sleeping or having frequent nightmares. There can be a decline in their grades, loss of interest in school or any activities, or also not wanting to go to school. They may have a sudden loss of friends, or they try to avoid social situations. Feelings of hopelessness or decreased self-esteem, and self-destructive behaviors such as running away from home, engaging in self-harming behaviors, and also talking about suicide, and having those suicidal thoughts. These are signs that a youth may be bullying somebody else. So they get into physical or verbal fights. They have friends who bully other people. They're increasingly aggressive. They get sent to the principal's office, or they have detention quite frequently. They have unexplained extra money or new belongings. They may blame other people for their problems. So they never take responsibility for their actions or their behaviors. It's always everybody else's fault. And then they also may be very competitive, and they may be worried about their reputation or their popularity. So these are just some facts when it comes to cyberbullying, and then also bullying in general. So you can take a look at those. I'm not going to go over every single one of them, but really the bottom line is that it's a problem. And it's not just a small problem, it's a big problem. And it seems that it gets worse every year. So just going over just a few of these, 67% of students believe schools respond poorly to bullying. And so we'll talk about that here at the end. Every 7 minutes, a child is being bullied. 1 in 3 report being bullied during the school year. 24% of youth would not know what to do if they were harassed or bullied online. 85% of bullying cases receive no intervention. So we can see why these behaviors continue to go on and also escalate if there is no intervention being taken place. The perpetrator doesn't see that what they're doing is wrong. And so when nobody intervenes and says, hey, this needs to stop, they're going to keep doing that. So with cyberbullying, almost 43% of kids have been bullied online, and 1 in 4 has had it happen more than one time. 70% of students have seen frequent bullying online. Over 80% of teens use a cell phone regularly, so this makes it the most common medium for cyberbullying. And 68% of teens agree that cyberbullying is a serious problem. And so, when we look at bullying altogether, bullying has been around for a long time. When I was younger, there was bullying, but when we were able to go home from school, we were able to get away from that. But today, with social media and cell phones, our youth don't have that option. They are connected to their peers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So they never get that opportunity to get a break from being bullying. And so that has caused so many more issues with the creation of social media. So when we look at the impact on youth, we know that this impacts them very, very greatly. So the youth who are being bullied may experience depression, anxiety, increased feelings of sadness and loneliness. They may have changes in their sleep and eating patterns. And then the things that they used to love to do, they now have no joy or have any interest in doing those things. They may also have health complaints such as headaches, stomach aches, or just overall feeling unwell. There's going to be a decreased academic achievement and school participation. So youth who are being bullied are more likely to miss, skip, or drop out of school. And a very small number of bullied children might retaliate through extremely violent measures. So the thing though is, even though they say it's a very small number, we know that it happens. So in 12 of the 15 school shooting cases in the 90s that happened, shooters had a history of being bullied. So we know that that can happen, and it does happen, but it's not always the case for every single person that has experienced bullying, but it does put them at risk for retaliating in a very violent way. So youth who bully others, like I had mentioned, there's an impact on them as well. So youth who bully others are at a higher risk to engage in violent and other risky behaviors into adulthood. So that could be doing behaviors that could lead to legal problems. It could be high risk sexual behaviors. It could also engaging in drugs and alcohol. They may get into fights more often, vandalize property, or even drop out of school, engage in early sexual activity, have criminal convictions and traffic citations as adults, and they may be abusive towards their romantic partner, spouses, or children as an adult. So I also like this picture when it says, what does a bully look like? Because people have this idea of what a bully looks like. Just like, when we think of somebody that's struggling with addiction, people generally have this idea of what that person may look like. But just like addiction, bullying, it can be anybody. It's not somebody who is bigger, and they're not always the popular one. They can be anybody. So, we try to, when I work with youth, break down those stigmas of what a bully looks like, because, in their mind, they think it's that really popular kid. When in fact, it may be another kid in their school that is the complete opposite of that popular kid. So we also know that bystanders who witness bullying also have, it makes an impact on them as well. So with bystanders, they may have increased use of tobacco, alcohol, and other drugs. And they may also have an increased risk of developing mental health problems, including depression, anxiety. And they may also miss or skip school. And so when we talk about bystander help, it's something that we always want to encourage our youth to do, but that is so much easier said than done. There are lots of reasons why bystanders don't say anything. In some cases, it's because they're afraid that the person that's bullying will retaliate against them, and then that'll be their new person that they'll start bullying. Another thing is that some of them were raised in environments where you don't get into other people's business. It's none of your business. If it doesn't involve you, then stay out of it. So that can also make it really difficult too. But we know that if there are youth that care, and when they're witnessing that bullying, it has a huge impact on them. So that is also something that we talk to our youth about, how they feel they could safely and healthily intervene in a situation that they see where somebody is being bullied. Because when they don't say anything at all, it makes them feel really guilty. They feel bad about that. Which, like I had mentioned, that increases some of those mental health problems, including depression or anxiety. And also, witnessing bullying can be traumatic for some youth, especially if they have been raised in an environment where there is domestic violence. So seeing some of that can trigger some of those emotions maybe they have experienced in the past. So, again, just because somebody is not being bullied, or they're not the bully and they're just witnessing it, it also has an impact on their whole well-being as well. So when we look at the relationship between bullying and suicide, so youth who are bullied are at a higher risk of suicide, but bullying alone is not the cause. So when youth who bully youth who bully others are also at risk of suicide as well. And it's actually the numbers are very, very similar. So some people think that when it comes to bullying and someone's being bullied, if they attempt or complete suicide, that it was strictly because of that bullying. And really the thing is most times our youth have other issues that are contributing to that suicidal risk, but maybe that bullying was kind of the last straw for them. So other issues that can contribute to suicide risk. And if you work with youth, think about the youth that you work for or you work with. When I think of all of my kids, they have experienced all of these things. So depression and other mental health problems, having problems at home, having a history of trauma, engaging in alcohol and substance use, having a recent or serious loss. So this could be the death of a loved one, a friend, or a pet. It could be the divorce of parents. It could be the end of a romantic relationship they were involved, or also the end of a friendship. Also having a lack of social support and that stigma that's associated with asking for help. It's almost 2023, and unfortunately, we still have that stigma that you're considered weak if you ask for help, and lots of other things. So all of these are what may put somebody at a higher risk for suicide. And like I mentioned earlier, they may be dealing with some of this stuff and then while being bullied, and that is kind of what sets them off into attempting or possibly completing suicide. But 1 in 6 victims of any type of bullying actually attempt suicide. But again, don't forget, usually that's, a risk factor, but typically they're going through other things than just the bullying. So this slide, when I was making this, broke my heart. So I simply Googled youth who have completed suicide that were being bullied. And this is just a small fraction of so many youth and pictures that I saw online that took their life, as a result of going through different things in life and then also being bullied. So we know that this is a huge problem. And what makes it really difficult too is, these are kids. Some of them are practically babies. I think the youngest one I saw was a 9-year-old, who completed suicide. So we think, well, this kid, they're too young. They're not going to know what that is, and they're not going to do anything to themselves, but they do know. They know a lot more than what we think that they know, and they're turning to suicide to escape their problems. So when we are looking at suicide, these are some red flags to keep in mind. And a lot of times people think, well, I didn't see anything. They never displayed some of these things, which that could be the case, but actually 4 out of 5 teens do display red flags of suicide. But a lot of people just they don't understand, or they're not educated on what to look out for. So the first thing is they may be talking. So they may be having these talks about wanting to die, or having a lot of guilt or shame. And then also talking about being a burden to others. When we look at the feelings, they may feel empty, hopeless, trapped, or not having a reason to live. They may feel extremely sad, very anxious, agitated, or rageful. And they may also feel unbearable emotional or physical pain. And then there's also changes in behaviors. So they may start making plans or researching ways to attempt suicide. They may start withdrawing from their friends. So they're isolating themselves more often, and also giving away important items, things that they cherished or that had significant value to them. All of a sudden, they just start giving it away to family and friends. They may engage in dangerous and risky behaviors. And that's common because, again, if they don't feel that they have a will left to live, they're going to engage in these behaviors carelessly because they don't care if they live or die. There could be some extreme mood swings, changes in sleep and appetite, and they may start or they may be using drugs and alcohol more often. So next is ways to address bullying. Bullying is not, there's no simple solution to addressing it and actually making, trying to create a plan to stop it. But there are ways that we can work with our youth to try to make it better. So youth who know what bullying is can better identify it. So again, sometimes we assume that youth know what bullying is, what it looks like, what it doesn't look like, but we can't assume that. So the first key would be educating youth on what bullying is and how they can identify what it is. The next is encourage youth to speak to a safe adult if they are bullied or see others being bullied. They can encourage them to help others who are being bullied by showing kindness or getting help. So again, when we have those bystanders, they may not intervene when they see it themselves. But instead of doing nothing, one thing that they can do is they can go to a safe adult if it's happening in school, and they can share with that adult anonymously of the things that they are seeing. And truly, that is just as helpful as if they were intervening themselves in that situation. Next is that research shows that youth actually do look to adults for advice and help on difficult situations. So a lot of times we assume that youth think that, they're 15 years old, but they act like they're 30 and they know it all. And sometimes they do. I know when I was that age, I felt like I knew it all. But the reality is that they actually do want those adults to be involved, and that they do care about the advice we give them and the things that we teach them. Sometimes just spending 15 minutes a day talking can reassure youth that they can talk to adults if they have a problem. So this can be something that can be done in classes, is just having a conversations about daily life and feeling. Sometimes I think we get so caught up in the hustle and bustle of life in school. And I know that educators are, everybody that works in schools, everybody's so overwhelmed. There's so many things that need to get done. But just spending a couple minutes a day talking about real life things and feelings can be really helpful and impactful in reducing those bullying behaviors. So some of those conversations may be about, asking them what bullying means to them. What do they think about people who bully? Who are the adults you feel safe going to when it comes to bullying? What do you usually do when you see bullying going on? Have you ever seen kids at your school being bullied, and how did it make you feel? So just having that open and honest conversation with youth, again, that can kind of help them to understand and educate them on what bullying looks like and what it is. It helps them to identify those safe adults that they can go to if they need to. So again, we're not talking about spending that whole class period or that whole time over that conversation. Just taking 5 or 10 minutes to go over those things can be really helpful. We also want to support youth who are being bullied. So listening and focusing on that youth is going to be really, really important. And truthfully, you may be that first person that they feel is listening to them. It's also important to ensure the youth that bullying is not their fault. Even though there are sometimes youth will, antagonize other people and they'll say, well, they shouldn't have done that, or maybe they wouldn't have, been bullied, but it's never, nobody ever deserves to be bullied. So we always have to make sure that they know that it's not their fault. We have to know that youth who were bullied may struggle talking about it. And that's for lots of different reasons, whether they are afraid, they're embarrassed, they're ashamed, they feel guilty. So, if they don't want to talk about it, or there's kind of that silent moment, that's okay. Those are completely normal behaviors. And, if they don't feel comfortable talking to you, consider referring them to a school counselor, social worker, or other mental health provider. Or you can ask them, is there somebody here at this school or wherever you're at that you do feel safe talking to? You want to work together to resolve the situation and make sure you're protecting the youth that is experiencing bullying. So you can ask them what can be done to make them feel safe. Changes to routine should be minimized. So I would see and hear so often, if there were two people, there was one that was bullying and one being bullied. So what they would do is they would change the class schedule of the youth that was being bullied. So again, when we do that, it's kind of putting that blame on them. So we need to support the youth who are being bullied, and we should try to avoid changing any of their routines. So if anything, the person that is bullying, they're the ones where their schedules and everything should be changed more often than the other person who is experiencing bullying. You can develop a game plan and maintain open communication between schools, organizations, and parents. You want to be persistent and consistent in supporting the youth who are being bullied. So it's always important to have like that ally, or be an ally in that school where youth know that they can go to you if you are experiencing, or if they are experiencing being bullied. And then you also want to follow up with them. So, continue to have that working relationship with that youth, because when you're persistent, consistent, and you're following up, that helps build their self-esteem, because it shows that somebody cares about them. It helps them to feel better about themselves. So those are all really, really important things when we're trying to support someone who's experiencing being bullied. These are some common mistakes to avoid when you are working with youth and bullying. So never tell the youth to ignore the bullying, or to tell the person bullying how they feel, to make a joke out of the situation, or just don't let it bother you. Or, kids will be kids, it's fine. So we want to avoid those things because we're minimizing that problem. And when we're minimizing it, then that just allows for that situation and that bullying to take place even longer and possibly get more severe. The next is really, really important. Please do not force youth involved to work things out together. I've seen this a lot where they take the people involved. So it's those who are bullying and those being bullied. They put them in a room together and they make them talk it out, or make them apologize to one another and shake hands. So they have found that that is not an effective way to decrease bullying behaviors, and it can actually put that youth at risk for further victimization. We also don't want to blame the youth for being bullied, even if they provoked it. Like I mentioned earlier, no one deserves to be bullied. Do not tell the youth to physically fight back against the person bullying. So this could get the child hurt, suspended, or expelled. I have a lot of difficulties when I'm working with some of our youth that may be experiencing bullying, and they're raised in an environment where their family says, if somebody hits you first, you hit them back. So that can be really difficult, or even not even if it's hitting, if they say something disrespectful, their families are telling these youth that, you shouldn't be putting up with that. And if they are calling you names and disrespecting you, then you have a right to hit them. And so that can cause that conflict, when we have people in the school saying, no, don't do this. And then in their environment and the families saying, yes, it's okay to do that. But as professionals, it's always important that we are in telling them that they should not be fighting back physically against that person. Parents should resist the urge to contact the other parents involved, as this can make things so much worse. So school and other officials, they should be the ones acting as mediators between those parents. We know that if the youth that's being bullied, the family calls the one that's bullying them their family. Well, then that family tells their kid, hey, this family called and says that you're bullying their child. So that can just escalate and make that problem even worse. And also it can cause issues between those families because they're pointing the finger and blaming, and it just creates issues. So we should always allow the school and other officials be the ones that are mediating between the families. So addressing bullying behavior. So if we are seeing that this is going on, it is so important that we address it, that we don't just sweep it under the rug and pretend we didn't see or hear anything. So first and foremost, address the youth who is bullying. Talk to them in a private location. This is a private matter, and it should not be a discussion that is being held in the hallways or in a public space where everybody can hear what's going on. And make sure that the youth knows that that their problem behavior is, because again, if they are brought up in an environment that what they're doing and how they're behaving is okay, they may not actually know that they are engaging in bullying behavior. It's also important to show youth that bullying is taken very seriously. And so when we are doing this and talking to them, we need to model that respectful behavior when addressing the problem. So I put this picture up here. This is not a great way to address bullying behavior. So number one, we are out in the open in the hallway. Number two, the finger pointing and being very close like that. It's not the most respectful way to talk to that youth that may be engaging in those bullying behaviors. The next is to work with youth to understand some of the reasons they bully others. So sometimes we think that youth may bully just because they're mean. And maybe that's the case, but in most times, somebody that is bullying others, they have a lot of other things going home. So instead of just assuming that they're a bad kid and addressing their behaviors by suspending them or expelling them, talk to them, have that conversation with them. Sometimes they bully because they want to try to fit in. Maybe they have been bullied before in the past, and so they're just trying to figure out ways that they can fit in, so they don't have to go through being bullied again. There could be issues at home. There may be abuse going on. It could be stress. And again, they may have been bullied themselves. Involve the youth who are bullied in making amends or repairing that situation. So I had mentioned earlier how, we don't want to put the two or however many people together and talk it through, but you want to talk to them individually. And sometimes the person that is bullying, if you have them write a letter apologizing, and then that's something you would go over with that child that has experienced the bullying, or maybe doing a good deed for that person. So this isn't always effective. It can be, but it's just something that you kind of have to assess the situation yourself. So involving that youth and trying to make amends, is that going to make that situation and problem worse, or could it possibly make it better? So that is something that the adult and the professional would have to decide. We also want to avoid strategies that don't work or have negative consequences. So our first is the zero tolerance policy. Lots of schools have that zero tolerance against bullying or the 3 strikes you're out strategies, but research has found that these actually do not work. Suspending or expelling youth who bully doesn't reduce that bullying behavior. A lot of times, once they come back, they're going to continue those behaviors again. Students and school faculty may be less likely to report and address bullying if suspension or expulsion is the consequence. Because again, we don't want kids to miss out on getting an education and learning. Or maybe they play sports. And so, we don't want them to get suspended or expelled, because if that happens, then they may get kicked off the team, or they may not be able to play, some games. So that's not helpful. Conflict resolution and peer mediation. Again, this is not helpful. Bullying is not a conflict between two people. If it was just a conflict between two people that have equal power, then that's not considered bullying. And so that conflict resolution, isn't helpful in that situation. Facing youth who have bullied them may upset them further, and bullying behaviors could increase or become more severe. And then also group treatment for students who bully don't work either. Sometimes some places will have groups of kids that engage in these bullying behaviors, but really they have found that each members reinforce the bullying behavior in each other. So it kind of just amps them up to continue those behaviors rather than to decrease or stop them.
So Autumn, there's just quickly, there's a comment in the chat, and I'm not entirely sure what it's in reference to, so whoever wrote it may want to unmute themselves, but they said something about their experience has been they choose to ignore it, and I'm not sure what they were referencing to.
Yeah, I wonder if it was like maybe in a school setting where it's like
setting. My daughter was bullied, and I went in on a couple of different occasions regarding the bullying, and it was in school as well as via social media.
Mm-hmm.
When I went in, it was basically, he wasn't doing it on school time. Then their response finally was that they chose to sit him with my daughter at lunch.
Gosh.
For them to deal with it. My daughter went from a straight A student who loved going to school to I fought with her daily to attend school. It was not a good setting at all. I ended up reaching out and advised the school if they chose to not do anything, that I would be pursuing charges against this child. And finally, at that point, I explained to them that their response to the situation was not appropriate. Having middle schoolers sit together at lunch when this is a child who is consistently, the amount of bullying that this child did, imposed my child's picture on different faces, or I'm sorry, different bodies.
Oh my gosh.
Different ads. I had proof that I took in, and that was their response to it. And I was basically overreacting when I'm in their offices in tears for my child.
Sure. Oh
so it wasn't until I got law enforcement involved. I went to the local county sheriff's office, and then that officer, along with the pro officer, sat down with this child and had a meeting and advised that, charges would be filed.
Good.
That was what finally got the abuse to stop. There were still little comments made by this child, but the issues on social media were stopped.
Oh my gosh, I am so sorry that you had to go through that. But seriously, I can't thank you enough for being a voice for your child, because unfortunately there are so many kids and youth that don't have that. And so I commend you, because it's not easy. It's not easy to deal with all of that and to continue to see your child being hurt. But, and unfortunately, your experience is not uncommon.
No, it's
as far as how they handle those situations. So,
and that's what I told them. I said, you tell me that you're zero tolerance, but when I come to you and I address the issue with you, your response to the issues, that's not zero tolerance.
No, it's not. It's really not.
You are contradicting exactly what your policy states. And, I don't think they quite knew what to say because they had an educated parent.
Mhm.
I feel horrible for those students whose parents may not be as outspoken or as educated as some of us are.
Sure.
I mean, because as social workers, that's my role, is to advocate.
Exactly.
And, I advocate for my clients, but I'm going to advocate, for my child, definitely.
Sure. Sure. Well, again, I commend you for your advocacy. And like I said, that is unfortunately not the first time that I've heard of how schools are addressing that situation. And and I don't know, but I'm hoping this last piece, maybe we can, start educating schools on how to effectively address these bullying situations. Because if a school were to say there's no bullying in my school, that's not true. Bullying goes on in every school. There is not one school that is immune from, these behaviors happening. Which just some of the instances in different schools is more severe than the other. But again, regardless of how severe it is bullying, and it's still hurtful and it's very damaging. So there is a program, it's called the Ulvaeus Bullying Prevention Program. So I actually just went to a 2-day training on, it was a train the trainers on the Ulvaeus Bullying Prevention Program. I actually think I saw a couple of people that were in that training with me. And so this was an amazing experience to be able to learn more about the Ulvaeus Bullying Prevention Program. And so the state of West Virginia actually received a grant for schools that are interested in implementing this program into their school. So really the overview of what the bullying prevention program is, what I love about it is it's not just that, 2-week curriculum that you're teaching kids, about how to, say no, or, telling somebody to stop and stuff like that. So this is a comprehensive approach that includes school-wide, classroom, individual, and community components. And this is focused more on that long-term change that creates a safe and positive school climate. So it's not just going over it for a week every school year. So it's something that is consistent throughout that school year, which is helpful because, with our young kids, their brains aren't fully developed yet. So they may learn about it for a week in school, but by, next week or 2 weeks later, a lot of that stuff they haven't been able to comprehend and keep it in their head. So then they start going back and doing the things they were before. So with this program, it continuously, in subtle ways, goes over the bullying prevention. And so it's constantly and consistently reminding the children of what these behaviors are, what they look like, and help schools, figure out the best ways to address those situations. And so this is evidence-based. It wasn't something that was just, created out of nowhere. But it's designed and evaluated for use in all schools. So that includes elementary, middle and junior high school, and high schools. Their goals is to reduce and prevent bullying problems among school children and improve those peer relations at school. It helps to kind of create a more positive climate between the students as well as the faculty. So the results have shown that the evidence base has reduced bullying among youth. It's improved the social climate of classrooms, and it's reduced related antisocial behaviors such as vandalism and truancy. This program is implemented in more than a dozen countries around the world, and it's in thousands of schools here in the United States. So how the prevention program works, again, it focuses on the whole school environment. So we're not just nitpicking the certain situations, certain students, it's looking at the whole entire school. And then they assess bullying at the school. So there's an assessment form that the youth can fill out so they can voice, what problems and things that they're seeing. And then they form a group to support bullying prevention activities. So this is the bullying prevention committee, and that's actually who I train. And this committee can be, it could be anybody in the school, and they provide these prevention activities. And then all staff are trained in bullying prevention. It helps them to establish and enforce those school rules and policies related to bullying. It involves youth on regular discussions about bullying. It helps with increasing adult supervision in locations where bullying occurs. Educates staff how to intervene consistently and appropriately in bullying situations, provides ongoing support, and continues efforts over time. So like I mentioned, this is something that is ongoing. It's not just a 1-week seminar or curriculum that the kids get involved in. This is ongoing. And when we talk about the schools, this isn't just educators that are involved. This includes everybody, including volunteers, substitute teachers, cafeteria workers, school bus drivers, janitors, and everybody. So it's kind of a really, really big group effort. But it's a really, really great program. When I did the training and they showed the results, it's just when everybody's on the same page and on board on how to address that program, it really can make a world of a difference. So ways to get help. These are just some crisis resources that I give to adults and youth. But we have our crisis text line where they can text 741-741 to home 24/7, where they can talk to somebody anonymously. NAMI, that's our National Alliance on Mental Illness. So there's lots of information on mental health. And this is really great for adults to educate themselves more about mental health because they do have a section that is specialized with youth and mental health problems. SAMHSA is our Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services. They have a national helpline that people can call, and they have free confidential support and referral services 24/7. So if you are needing referral or wanting more information on how to treat certain issues, then you can always contact them. And then they also provide tons of free resources. So if you go to SAMHSA's website and you go to their publications section, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of brochures, pamphlets, books, toolkits on substance use and mental health. And it's all free and you can order it. You can download it as a PDF and print it. If you order stuff and they ship it, that is also free as well. I am constantly on there. I'm looking for new things, and they just have lots of great resources. And then locally, we have our Help for WV. So they offer state resource and referrals for mental health and substance use concerns. They also have a online chat support, and that is available to call or to talk. Or text is available 24/7. So I always encourage people to utilize these resources because they are out there for a reason. And then these are really great resources. This is everything that I used for all my information that I got from my PowerPoints. But all of these have really great information on mental health and bullying. So, and also suicide prevention. So I do highly recommend that people take a look at these websites if you are wanting to learn more, because sometimes education is key in order to trying to reduce the bullying behaviors as well as reducing suicidal tendencies in our youth. So if you ever have any questions, you are always more than welcome to reach out to me. If you work in a school and you are interested in the Olveus Bullying Prevention Program, you can feel free to email me at awagoner@missionwv.org. And then we can talk, and then I can get you to the wonderful people at Marshall that received this grant for this program, so we can get that process started and kind of go from there. Or if you're just experiencing a situation with, whether it's personally with your child or professionally at work, again, you are always more than welcome to email me.
Thank you, Autumn. This is a great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to open it up and see if folks have any questions, but we have a few minutes before we stop today, and just I'm going to repost it in a minute, but I did post a link to the evaluation survey in the chat, so I'm going to do that now so that it's up and people can access it. But if you have questions, feel free to type them in the chat, or you can unmute yourselves as well. And as a reminder, we will be sending out a copy of the PowerPoint to folks as well, which has lots of great information and links. And then we'll be emailing out the CE certificates within about a week.
Yep, and as soon as we get off here, I will get the presentation email to you.
Perfect. Okay.
Yes, so thank you everybody for attending. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, okay. Here's a question. Does the youth need to be a resident of the state of West Virginia?
For the Ulvaeus Bullying Prevention Program,
Yes.
so in order to receive it here in West Virginia, then yes, they would have to be a resident. But if the youth is living out of West Virginia, this program can be implemented in any state. It's in thousands of schools throughout the United States and in 12 different countries. And so if you just look up the Ulvaeus Bullying Prevention, you can go to their website. It's through Clemson University. And then that would be able to connect you with, on how to get that implemented in another state.
Okay. Thanks, Autumn. There is another question. It says, instead of saying ignore it, what should I say?
Instead of saying ignore it, like if somebody is being bullied.
Yeah, so the person who asked that question, could you maybe clarify?
Yeah, my daughter comes home from school all the time and tells me how different girls say different things to her. They take her water bottle. She thinks one of them cut her hair.
Oh my gosh.
Told she they were going to push her down the stairs and watch everybody laugh at her. So, I mean, I have at times said, just ignore them. Like they have their own problems. They're projecting it on you. There's nothing wrong with you. You're fine the way you are. They call her fat. So what do I say to that?
Well, I mean, it's hard. I can't imagine being in that situation where your own child is going through that. And I think it makes it really difficult because, as a parent, we want to fix it. We want to make it all better. But there's some situations, instead of just saying ignoring it, I do like the fact that you had talked about how, other people, we know the phrase misery loves company. So it's like the people that are unhappy in their own lives, they, may tend to display that on other people. But the thing is that's still not resolving the issue. And so one thing that's going to be important is validating exactly the things that she tells you, and telling her that it's not her fault that they are treating her this way, and maybe helping her come up with a plan on, what she can do to kind of help keep her safe, or if they're bothering her, have her identify those people in the school, the adults in the school that she can go to and talk to. Because if we can help kind of create that safety plan or that safety net for her, then that may help her a little bit, knowing that, well, if somebody says something to me, then I know I can go to this person and I can talk to them about it. And the other thing too is the school aware that these behaviors are going on? And so it might be a situation where you may have to get involved if it continues. And even if she doesn't, if say your daughter doesn't feel comfortable talking to anybody in the school, then it'll definitely be important for you to call them, because they may not know that situation is going on. But it's very, very important. So I wish we could just say, just ignore it. You're beautiful the way you are. They're jealous of you, whatever the case is. But when they're consistently in that environment where they're being told these things and, feeling these things, it's really hard for them to believe that, or to try to say, yeah, you know what, my mom is right, like I'm all of these things. So it just may be a situation where you have to get involved, or maybe help her kind of create some type of safety plan. So while she's at school, if these behaviors continue, then what's the next step? Who can she go and talk to?
Right. I mean, I tell her to go to the counselor, and I did put her in with, they have the Change school-based mental health clinic. So I did put her in with therapy there. But
Good.
when the girl said the whole throw her down the stairs kind of thing, she called me from the office upset. I asked her if she told anybody. she said no. I said, well, you have to tell, somebody. I was like, do you want me to? So I called and left a message for the assistant principal, who did try to handle the situation, but did exactly what you said not to, and stuck them both in the same room and made them talk it out and apologize to each other.
Oh no. Yeah. Well,
So
you are more than welcome. When you get this PowerPoint, maybe you can send it to the principal and be like, hey, maybe read this over. And you may have to say, look, like, I've done my research and I know that is not an effective way. And obviously they did that, but the issue is still going on. And so the school is going to have to figure something out. They can't just say, oh, well, I tried my best, it didn't work. Oh, well. It's the school's role to make sure that those kids feel safe and that they're being protected. And it may just have to be something that you just have to continuously advocate and keep calling them over and over and over until they do something different. And I know it's frustrating. And, as a parent, we feel that, well, the school should be able to handle that. But like the person that shared their story earlier, we know that a lot of schools either don't know how to handle the situation or they just choose not to.
Thanks, Autumn.
You're welcome.
thank you.
We are over time, so we're going to have to wrap it up, but I really want to thank you for your presentation and feedback. This is really great, really important seminar. So I appreciate you taking the time, and I want to thank everybody who attended today. Please, keep your eyes open for additional Lunch and Learn seminars. We have a few more for the rest of this semester. We also are going to be sending out a schedule soon with seminars for our spring semester as well. So thank you, everyone, and hope to see you back next week. And thank you, Autumn.
Thank you.